Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Hello all, welcome to programming screencast of image processing. Let us explore some cool ideas in image processing through this screencast. Before taking you to the programming part, let me show you the images using which we are going to do image processing. This is the first image. As you could see, it looks like some mirror image. All that we can make out from this image is just that some newspaper clipping photos have been pasted on the wall, and what is written in the newspaper, it's not so clear. This being mirror image, it's not so clear for person to understand what is being written here. So let us apply some image processing technique, transform this image into a form that all can understand, and let us try to see what is there. This is our first image for image processing that we are going to do now. The next image is this. This image has been taken from a crime location. As been said in lectures, this whole exercise of image processing is aimed at helping find out the truth. This thing is the image of a bullet shot. A few bullet shots can be seen, but there are many features in this image which are not clear to us. We'll apply some image enhancement techniques, image processing techniques. Some enhancement technique will enhance this image so that we shall understand about the minute features present in this image. Who knows, maybe that may serve as some evidence. Let's see. Okay, now let's start off with the programming component. The first image I had shown is the mirror image. That needs to be flipped so that we can understand what is being written in those newspaper clippings that has been pasted onto the wall. Let us see that. So that exercise we are doing now, the technique we are going to apply is flipping. In simple terms, it is flipping the image. That is our first image processing task we are going to do. For doing this, we need to import the necessary package. Let us do that. We need the image package from PIL library. Let me import that from PIL import image. Done importing. Alright. I had shown you this image. This image is obtained.png. The name is obtained.png. Let's open this image. It is done by this way. Image equals to image.open. Here you're supposed to give the file path. My image file is in the same directory as that of my Python script. So I'm just giving the file name. In case your image file is in some different path, you need to specify the entire path. Please note that the correct path has to be specified. Else, if you just specify the name, the file would be searched in the default directory where your script is running. Please note this point. The file name is obtained.png. Done with it. We have opened this. Images. This part is opening the image. We are done with it. Images in general, computers processes them in terms of matrices. So that image is opened. The corresponding matrix format is taken and captured by this object img. The matrix format is captured here, and flipping the image is the terminology that we are using here to actually convert the mirror image into actual image. We are using the terminology flipping. That is easy on our minds, but the technical terminology that they use is transposing. As I said, that images are generally processed in terms of matrices. So matrices, I hope all would have come across them in your high school level mathematics. In matrices, there is some special operation called transposing. That is nothing but you are making all the rows as columns and columns as rows. That is what you call it as transposing. So transposing operation we are going to apply onto this matrix, which will actually give you back your actual image from your mirror image. That is what we are going to apply here now. How will we do that? Let's see. This is our matrix object of the transposed image. So let me call this transposed img. This is nothing but image img dot transpose. This is a predefined function. Transpose of this is a predefined parameter image dot flip left right. This is a predefined parameter. What this line does is it takes the matrix that is captured by img object, transposes that matrix, and this new matrix is stored in transposed img object. That object captures the new matrix. So now we have got the actual image in the matrix representation that is understandable by the computers. But now what we need to do is we need to convert it into a form that is understandable by humans. Let's do that. The next step is we have to convert into a human understandable format and save it to a file. To a file in a human understandable format. That is the next step we need to do. Alright. So this is done like this. Transposed image. You take the matrix object which you need to actually save it into a human readable format. You take this object and call save function on it. This is also a predefined function and it takes an argument. Here, same like how you had done in open, you are supposed to specify the path where you want your output file to be saved. Here, I want the file to be saved in the same directory, so I am just giving the desired file name. In case you want it to be saved in a different path, please do specify the entire path correctly and give the desired file name. Let me give the desired file name. I'll call this corrected because that was a mirror image which was not very clear to us. This has been corrected so that it is clear to us. Corrected.png. Corrected.png is the file format I want. The same as input file format. That's fine with me, so I have given that. In case you need, maybe you can try changing the file format as you require, JPG or BMP, whatever. You can give that. Okay. So now when everything is done, just print a message. This is for us to understand that the output file is ready. Just say that done flipping. Done flipping. Okay, everything is done. Let me run this file. I have given comments as well for each line of the code. So in case you think that you need to understand the code, please do pause the video, read through that, understand the code, then you may proceed with running of the file. Let me run this file. Okay, I got the output as done flipping. Let me check the output file. I had named it as corrected.png. Let me check it. Corrected.png. Yeah, I got this. Yeah, this is the file. See, now it is clear for us to understand what is being written. Some newspaper clipping, doctor accused of killing wife, something like this. Yeah, some newspaper clippings have been there. We can now understand what is being written here, unlike the previous image which was not clear to us. You can observe side by side. This is not very clear. This image is not very clear to us, whereas after applying the transposing operation, we got an image that is very clear for us to understand what is being conveyed here. So this is how transposing operation has helped us unravel something which was previously not clear and now made clear with the help of coding, computing. Well, among the two operations that I had said, one operation is done. Let us go with the second operation. I don't want this thing, so let me comment it. I'm done with the first operation, so let me comment that. Now the second operation is nothing but image enhancement. There are many image enhancement techniques available. We are going to use one specific technique called as histogram equalization. Specifically, adaptive histogram equalization. We call it as CLAHE, that is contrast limited adaptive histogram equalization. This is just the technical name. All that you can take is, that is an image enhancement technique. We are going to use it so that I had shown you that image previously. Yeah, this is the image. There are some features in this image which are not very clear to us. That would become clear once we apply this technique. Enhance this image so that the portions that are not clearly visible will be clearly visible. Who knows? This is a image taken from, this is the image of bullet shot. This is taken from a crime location. There may be some features which may be evidences which open up new facts. Anything is possible, right? Let's explore. Alright, for doing this, we need to import our package CV2. CV2 is the package we need. We have imported. And now I need to, same like that, I need to read the image. Image img equals to cv2.imread. Image read is the parameter I am supposed to give. Similar to the previous one, you are supposed to give the file path here. Since my image file is in the same directory, I am just giving the file name. In case your image file is in a different place, you need to specify the path completely. The file name was crime.png. Let me read this image. So the image has been read. So we are supposed to now apply the technique CLAHE, image enhancement using CLAHE. That is contrast limited adaptive histogram equalization. That is CLAHE. In case you are interested to learn more about it, there are so many good articles available online which reveal you everything right from the math underlying the concept. Everything is beautifully explained. You can see to it. Here our aim is to unravel the mystery, so we are not getting into the technical part of it. This can be looked up at any time. There are a lot of resources available. It's straightforward. You can do it. So let us apply the technique to our rescue to unravel some new facts. Who knows, anything may be unraveled. Let's see. I have to first prepare for applying CLAHE technique. Preparation for CLAHE. This is the step that has to be done. This is the equalization technique, histogram equalization technique. This is an enhancement technique. To enhance the image, some preparatory thing has to be done. That is what I am doing now. I am creating an object that will have the properties of enhancement. cv2.create CLAHE. This is the preparatory phase. We are done with it. Now this enhancement technique works well if the images is in the black and white format. All that we need is to unravel the facts. So let us convert it to black and white format, get to know if there are some new facts, and based on that, if needed, we can even convert it back to color and we can do it. That is on need basis, we can do it anytime. So let us convert it to nothing but a grayscale image. So convert it into grayscale image. This is the grayscale image. We have to convert the image into a grayscale value so that this enhancement technique shall be really effectively applied. Let's convert it. Gray image is equal to cv2.cvt color of, we pass this image object, then color underscore bgr to gray. So this has been converted into a grayscale image. Color cv2.color bgr to gray. all these are predefined functionalities in CV2 package. So just observe, everything has been predefined. So it is with very few lines of code, anyone can enhance any image, unravel any facts from it. This is so simple nowadays. Okay, we are done with making it into a grayscale image. Now it is okay, we shall apply the enhancement process. Apply enhancement. That is the next step we have to do. Enhanced image is clahe dot apply this grayscale image. You are supposed to give the grayscale image to the clahe algorithm. Grayscale image has been passed, and after enhancement, all this, as I have said, image processing, all this would be dealt in terms of matrices. IMG is a matrix corresponding to your original image that has been converted to grayscale, and the corresponding matrix is captured by gray IMG, and that has been applied, and some transformation would occur so that the image is enhanced, and this particular matrix is captured by ENH image, that is enhanced image. This is the short form I am using it. This is captured by this particular object. So having said that, enhancement is done. It is in a format that is understandable by computers. Now the next step is to make it human understandable. Let's do that, and the output has to be saved in a file. Save it to a file. This is the next step we are supposed to do. We'll do that. cv2.im write image write. Here, as always, you're supposed to give the path of the file, but I want the output file also to be returned onto the same directory, so I'm just giving the desired name. In case you want it in a different path, please do specify the complete path. I would like to call this as enhanced.png. I'm okay with the same format. In case you want to change the format, you can try for changing that too. And this image must be an image corresponding to this particular matrix, enhanced image. The enhanced one from matrix representation, which is understandable by computers, to a representation that is understandable by humans, has to be returned. So we have to pass this as well. And this particular file should be named as enhanced.png. That is the command. We are done with it. So once everything is saved, to notify us, let us print done enhancing. I would recommend that you please pause the video here, take a look at the code. I have written with comments. Please do take a look at the code, understand this. Once you have understood this completely, let's go with running of the code. Okay, now let's run the code. Yeah, so it's done enhancing, it shows. So let us search for this file, enhanced.png. enhanced.png. Let us open this. Okay, this is the given file, which was not very clear. Now just observe, this is the enhanced version of the image. The cracks on the wall, starting from that, every minute detail can be observed, and it seems some marking is over here, even that could be observed. Alright, now we have enhanced this image. Few more details that were not clearly visible in that original image are now revealed after this enhancement. We shall analyze this, and this may open up new facts that were earlier unrealized. Thank you for watching this screencast. Have a nice day.
You see, many a times when we take our own picture, we realize that we actually appear better than what we are. That is because of the inbuilt image processing applications on your cell phone or on your camera. So this is a very big industry, as you know. Look at Instagram. It takes your picture and shows you 10 different ways in which you can sort of enhance it, right? So just now we showed you a couple of examples of how you can take an image, see it as a matrix and perform operations on it and get a brand new picture out of it, right? This was just the beginning. It's a big ocean out there. You can actually explore to whatever extent you want.
List, slit, lift, felt, eat, tea. What is common among all these? Let us find out in our forthcoming joy named anagrams. Do you know what is Hooke's law? Well, Hooke's law states that force needed to extend or compress the spring by some distance is proportional to that distance. It was discovered by Robert Hooke. Well, in earlier times, scientists were more concerned about protecting their secrets than sharing new knowledge with the world. Robert Hooke first reported Hooke's law as this, which unscrambles to this, which means force is proportional to stretch. You must be wondering, why are we discussing all this? Well, look at these two words. These are called anagrams. Anagram is a word or a phrase formed by rearranging the letters of another word. Let me give you some more examples of anagram. For example, listen, silent, tar, rat, dusty, study, inch, chin, brag, grab, stressed, desserts. So now let us move towards the programming screencast of anagrams. Before we move to the programming screencast of anagrams, I'd like to tell you what are ASCII values. ASCII is basically ASCII, which stands for American Standard Code for Information Interchange. ASCII values basically represent character encoding. What do I mean by character encoding here? For example, ASCII value of A is 65. That means a character is represented by some integer value. Here integer 65 represents character A. Similarly, we have ASCII values for rest of the characters too. I'll show you. Here we have the ASCII table. You can see here that capital A is represented by 65, capital B is represented by 66, capital C is 67, capital D 68, which goes till capital Z 90. So similarly, we have character encoding for the smaller, for the lowercase letters too. For example, small a is represented by 97, small b is represented by 98, which goes till 122, and z is represented by 122. Similarly, for the special symbols also, we have the ASCII values. For example, the exclamation mark is represented by 33, then hash value is 35, then dollar sign is represented by 36, percent sign is represented by 37. Similarly, we have ASCII values for plus, minus, even curly, even round braces. So you can see and you can refer this table for ASCII values, and we'll be using these ASCII values for the implementation of our program related to anagrams. So let us move towards the programming screencast of anagrams. Welcome to the programming screencast of anagrams. I hope you know what are ASCII values. I have explained in the previous video. If you haven't watched the previous video, please go through the previous video. ASCII values basically represent character encoding. Each character is represented by some integer value. ASCII basically stands for American Standard Code for information interchange. This has already been explained in the previous video. Please go through it. So now the question comes, how can we find the ASCII values in Python? How can we find the ASCII values of characters in Python? So we have a predefined function here called ORD. ORD, we have a predefined function here. We'll be using this to find the ASCII value of a particular character. So I'll just show you. For example, I need to find the ASCII value of capital A. So I'll just write capital A. We have 65. As I already told you, the ASCII value of capital A is 65, of B is 66, of C is 67. So we will just cross check whether it is giving us the right ASCII values. So here it is 66. Then capital C, we have 67. Now I'll check the value of capital Z, which is basically 90. Yes, it is 90. Now we can also check the ASCII values of lowercase letters. So I'll just write small a here. It is 97. That is correct. Then small b, it is 98. Small c, 99. And let us also check the ASCII value of small z. So I'll just write small z and it is 122. Yes, we have the ASCII values here. This is how you can find the ASCII value of a particular character. As I already explained, we also have the ASCII values for some special symbols like sign of exclamation, @ hashtag. So we can also check. So let us check for sign of exclamation. It is 33. You can cross check in the table that we have shown here in the previous video. You can cross check with that particular table. Now we have, let us check for @ it is 64, and for %sign it is 37, for dollar it is 36, for hashtag it is 35. So this is how you can find the ASCII values of a particular character and some special symbols too. So I'll advise you to cross check with the table that we have given in the previous video. So now let us use this function to implement anagrams. So as you know, we have two strings and we need to find whether these two strings are anagrams or not. So I'll take two strings here. I'll take str1 and I'll input enter the first string. I'll also take another string str2 and I'll write input enter the second string. As you all know, by default it takes string as the input. We don't need to typecast this as we do in the case of integer or decimal values. Whenever you have to take string as an input, you don't need to typecast it. You just write the input function. Input and in the round braces whatever message you want to display. So here we are done. We have the str1 and str2. We'll compare this str1 and compare the str2 and find out whether these two strings are anagrams or not. So let us think about it. If we have to use the ASCII values, how can we use it? The sum of ASCII values of characters present in the anagrams should be same. Please think about it. The sum of the ASCII values of characters present in anagrams should be same because both the strings have same set of characters. If two strings are anagrams, then they should have the same set of characters. For example, I showed you one example, tar and rat. Both of these strings comprise of three characters R, A and T. So if I sum these values of these both strings, if I sum the ASCII values of these both strings, the answer should be same. If the answer is same, then these two strings are anagrams, otherwise they are not. So I'll just write the code to how to sum the ASCII values of characters present in the string. So we'll take count 1 here. I'll initialize it to 0. I'll take a variable I here. We'll use while loop here. I'll run while loop till the length of string 1, since we are trying to find out the sum of ASCII values of str1. So I'll take this while loop till length of str1, and what should I write here? I should write here count of 1 is equal to count of 1 plus, I'll use the ORD function here, str1 of I. So we have the count value here. Now the count 1 will store the sum of ASCII values of the characters present in str1. I should increment the I value here so that it traverses whole of str1. Then I'll take count 2 also, and this is 0. Similarly, I'll apply while loop here too in order to find the sum of ASCII values of str2. I'll write length of str2. I write count 2 is equal to count 2 plus ORD function str2 of I. I should also implement the I value here. So now I think we are done with generating the sum of ASCII values of both the string. Now I'll write if count 1 is equal to count 2, then I have to print these are anagrams. Else what do I need to print here? I need to print these are not anagrams. I'll write these are not anagrams. So I think we are done with the program. What did we do here? We took two strings, then we stored the sum of ASCII values of the characters present in the both strings in count 1 and count 2 respectively. Then we compared count 1 and count 2. If they are equal, then these must be anagrams, otherwise these are not anagrams. So I'll just run this. So I'll write anagram.py. I should enter the first string. For example, I entered listen. Then I should enter silent. As you know, listen and silent, these both make anagrams. But it is saying these are not anagrams. I think we did a mistake here. Yes, we haven't initialized I again. Please look at this. We haven't initialized I again. We incremented I here, so we need to initialize I again because we are using the same variable in both the loops. So it was a mistake here. So please rectify it. We need to initialize I here again. So let me run it again. I'll write silent and listen. Now let us check whether it puts yes, these are anagrams. These are right. So let me run it again. I'll write some example which are not anagrams. So I'll write, for example, wet. I'll write rat. These are not anagrams. So our program is giving us the right output. So let me also show you what count 1 and count 2 are storing here, so that you get to know that these are actually the same values. Count 1 here, and I'll also print count 2 here. So let us run again. So let us take the strings which are anagrams. So I'll write rat, then I'll write tar. So see, these both, count 1 is also 327, count 2 is also 327. Since both are anagrams, this should be same. and our program is giving us the output. These are anagrams. Since these we already know that these are anagrams, so it is giving us the right output. So this is how you can code for anagrams. I'll go through the program again. First of all, we should take two strings, str1 and str2, and our motive is to figure out whether these two strings are anagrams or not. So I'll just take one count, that is count 1. It will store the ASCII values, the sum of the ASCII values of the characters present in str1. I initialized I is equal to 0, then I'll have the while loop which will run till length of str1, and then we are storing the sum in count 1, and we are using the ORD function to find the ASCII values. It will store the sum of the ASCII values of the characters present in str1, and then we are incrementing I here, and I am printing the sum of the ASCII values here of str1. Then we are initializing another variable, that is count2, which will store the sum of ASCII values of the characters of str2, and then we also have I is equal to 0. Why do we need to do this? Because we have already incremented in the previous loop, and we are using the same variable here, so we need to initialize it again. So I initialized it again. I wrote I is equal to 0. Then I again had a while loop which will count the number, the sum of ASCII values of the characters present in str2. And then I printed this count2 value, and then I checked if count1 is equal to count2. If these both are equal, then these are anagrams, otherwise these are not anagrams. So I hope you understood the logic behind it. What is the logic behind it? If two strings are anagrams, then the sum of the ASCII values of the characters present in both the strings should be same. This is self-evident. As I showed you, we have different examples here: silent, listen, tar, rad. In silent and listen, the set of characters present in the str1 and str2, they are same. So the ASCII values should also be same. So that's why we took the sum of all these ASCII values and checked whether these two are equal. If these are equal, then the strings are anagrams, otherwise they are not anagrams. Well, there are many other ways in which with which you can find out whether two strings are anagrams or not. We will like you to discuss on discussion forum the other ways of how to figure out whether two strings are anagrams or not. In the forthcoming screencast, I'll be telling you one more way through which you can figure out whether two strings are anagrams or not. Thank you. Welcome again to the programming screencast of anagrams. In this particular programming screencast, I'll be discussing another way to figure out whether two strings are anagrams or not. In the previous programming screencast, we have already discussed a way to figure out whether two strings are anagrams or not. In this particular programming screencast, I'll be discussing another way. This particular method requires the use of sorted function. So what is sorted function? Sorted function basically sorts any sequence, list, for example list, and returns the sorted list. So I'll show you how can you use the sorted function. For example, I have a list here named x of integer values, and the values present in this are not sorted. For example, they are 4, 3, 1, 2. Now if I write print sorted of x, see, it printed the sorted values, and it printed the sorted values in ascending order. So sorted function basically returns the sorted values in ascending order. I repeat, sorted function by default sorts the values present in a list in ascending order. So if I want to sort the list in descending order, what should I do? Well, we have a way here. How can you do that? For example, we have sorted x, and this will pass another parameter named reverse, and in this I'll write true. So let us check whether it works or not. Yes, it works. So if I write reverse is equal to true, then it will sort the values in descending order. So I repeat, sorted function sorts the value in ascending order, and if I write reverse is equal to true, it will sort the values in descending order. This is how you can use the sorted function. You can also use the sorted function on different data types. For example, we can use the sorted function on character values too. For example, I have X as the list of characters, as Q, for example, W, E, R, T and Y. Now if I write print sorted of X, press enter. So as you see, it has sorted the values in alphabetical order. So first of all we have E, then Q, then R, T, W and Y. So if we have list of characters, then sorted function sorts the characters in alphabetical order, and we can also use a string in this sorted function. Let us find out how can you use that. For example, X is a string here and we have Python. X is a string which has the value Python here, and if I write again print sorted of X, then what should it print? Yes, it has sorted the characters of Python in alphabetical order. First of all is H, then N, then O, P, T and Y. So now you see you can use an integer list, you can use a character list, and you can also use a string and use it in sorted function to sort the values present in the particular list or string. And I hope that you're already aware of dictionaries. We can also use sorted to sort the dictionary. So how can you do that? I'll take a dictionary here. I'll again name it as X. So I'll write, for example, Q. Q is a key here and 1 is the value. Then I'll take W. W is the key here and 2 is the value. And then I have E here, for example, and its value is 3. And let's take one more value. For example, I'll just write 4 here, and then I'll take T here. Its value is 0. So we have invalid syntax here. Let us find out where is the problem. So the problem is we didn't use the curly braces. Yes, in dictionaries we should use the curly braces, and in list we use the the rectangular braces. So we should use the curly braces here. And then if I write print sorted of X, see, it has sorted the values in alphabetical order again. First of all, we have E, then Q, then T and W. So it is sorting the dictionary values on the basis of keys. Yes, it is sorting the dictionary values on the basis of keys. Please note this fact. Now I have another example here. For example, I have a list of strings here. For example, I have CC, CC, BB, then A, then DTD, and I want to sort this list on the basis of length of this particular string. Yes, I want to sort this list on the basis of length of particular list. So the output should be first of all, since A is the string with the smallest length, so first of all A should be printed, then BB should be printed, then DDD should be printed, then CC should be printed. So how can you do that? This is fairly easy. You just need to write print sorted capital L, and the key should be length. Just write length here and I press enter here. So I have the desired output. I sorted this list of string on the basis of length of the particular string. So first of all, I have A here, then BB, then DDD, then CC. So this is how you can sort this on the basis of length of the particular string. So I hope now sorted function is clear to you guys. Now I'll use this sorted function in our program to figure out whether two strings are anagrams or not. So first of all, we should take two strings. I'll take them str1 and str2. I'll just write input, enter the first string, then I should write str2 is equal to input, enter the second string, now you can figure out what purpose would sorted function would serve, what purpose would sorted function serve here. So we can sort these two lists, str1 and str2, and if the sorted version of these two lists is same, if the sorted version of these two lists is same, then we can say that str1 and str2 are anagrams, otherwise they are not. So what should I write here? If sorted of str1 is equal to sorted of str2, then I should print these are anagrams, else I should print these are not anagrams. So let us run this program. I'll just save it as anagram2.py. Enter the first string, I'll enter listen. Enter the second string, I'll enter silent. These are anagrams. So our output is correct. If I run it again, enter the first string hello. Enter the second string THYUI, any random string. These are not anagrams. So our output is correct. So I'll also show you whether the sorted version of these two lists are same. So I'll just print sorted str1 and then print sorted str2. So now let us try to run this again. So I'll take another anagram example. I'll take tar, I'll take rat. I typed it as ray. So these are not anagrams. But you see, the sorted versions are not even same. First of all, it is ART, then it is ARY. Now let us check on the list that are anagrams. So I'll write rat, I'll write tar. So as you can see, the sorted version of these two lists are same. So first of all, it is ART for rat, and for tar it is ART. So the sorted version of these two lists is same. That's why these are anagrams. And we can also take the examples of two lists that are not anagrams. So I'll just write another list. For example, how and wow. How and wow, these are not anagrams since the sorted version of these two lists is not same. So you can now figure out how to check whether two strings are anagrams or not. And I'll just go through the program again. First of all, you need to input two strings. That is fairly simple. And then you need to check whether the sorted version of these two lists are same. If they are same, then these are anagrams. If they are not same, these are not anagrams. So this program of anagrams was fairly easy. You just need to apply a function and there you are, you get the answer. So we have discussed two ways to figure out whether two strings are anagrams or not. There are, I think, many other ways through which you can figure out. I'd like you to discuss on discussion forum and bring out some more nice ideas to check whether two strings are anagrams or not. I hope this programming screencast was useful to you guys. If you have any problem, any doubt, please refer the discussion forum. We are there to help you. Thank you. Apart from sleeping, working and eating, what else do we do in our day-to-day life? Well, my answer would be Facebooking. So let us try to explore Facebook with our next joy, Facebook sentiment analysis.
You saw what happened? People tend to be putting a whole lot of their life status on Facebook. In fact, someone who is very active on Facebook can actually be revealing more than what he is supposed to reveal. In fact, just by looking at his status updates, you can see when he is on a high, when he is on a general low in mood. Facebook is such a happening place that sometimes I suspect, are people as active in their real life as they are on Facebook? What comes to your mind when I say analyze a given data? What is data to begin with? So, how many times do I smile in a day? How many strides of walk do I take every day? What is my salt intake on an average per day? Sugar intake? How much junk do I eat? How many hours do I sleep? Don't you think if I get this data for 1 full year and then analyze it, what exactly can one infer? We probably can infer how healthy a lifestyle we are living, right? This is what you mean by data analytics, analyzing the given data. If something as simple and straightforward as number of walking strides you take per day says something about your fitness level, what about the data that you update on Facebook, your overall activity on Facebook? Do you think we can infer something from an active Facebook user? The fact is, it's not just something, we can infer a whole lot of things. Assume I take all the data that you have shared on Facebook from the past 1 month. Status 1, status 2, status 3, status 4, up to let's say some 100 status messages that you have shared from the past 1 month. By observing this, what can I infer? For example, if my status was something like, life isn't as fair as I expect it to be. Don't you think I'm sounding slightly negative? Right? Second example, assume my status were to be something like this. I am proud of my country. I made it sound positive, but irrespective of the tone in which one might talk, the very sentence, I am proud of my country, gives a positive connotation, right? Now, let's look at the third example. Set your goals right. It's a very suggestive one-liner. Neither positive nor negative. It's neutral. Correct? Do you see the sentiment of the first sentence being negative? Second being positive? The third being neutral. As and always, what are we doing? Programming, of course. I told you 3 sentences and even told you and you realized that it was positive, negative and neutral. Is there any way we can write a piece of code which does the same? Without any human intervention, what if we can use computer programs to predict what is the sentiment of a given sentence? Of what use will that be? You know where I'm getting at. I told you I take 1 month's data of a person which comprises of 100 status messages. He has updated 100 status messages. I take all of them, S1, S2, S3 up to S100. And then I look at the sentiments of these sentences. Assume 80 on 100 were negative, which means this person is undergoing some trauma in his life or isn't in general a happy person. On the contrary, what if 90 messages out of 100 were full of joy? It means this person, if you're on the lookout for a spouse, you should marry this person, right? A very happy partner will sort of spread happiness, and happiness, as you know, is contagious, right? What amount of these 100 status messages are positive? How many of them are negative? And how many of them are neutral? Don't you think if we ask and answer this question, we can say something about the person himself? I am interested in doing the following exercise. I want to take all the status messages I have ever updated on Facebook, ever since I was part of the Facebook. Let's say from 2008, I think I am there on Facebook. It's been more than 10 years. So what I would like to do is download all my status updates and try to analyze all of them by looking at the sentiments of individual status updates and see which are the months I was more happy than unhappy, and months where I was unhappier than happier, times when I was neutral, and so on. You see, you can ask a lot of questions, but the hurdle here is how do I download my data, which is 10 years old? Once downloaded, how do I measure the sentiments of my status updates? This, in fact, is very easy to do today. In fact, you can do it for your own Facebook data as well, and we are going to illustrate it for you. Point number 1, we'll tell you how to download your Facebook data. Point number 2, Python to our rescue. We will tell you how to use the exact Python API to analyze your Facebook data.